Welcome to part 67 of the Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg, where we explore true crime, urban legends, mysterious disappearances, myths and legends, internet mysteries, and more. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below and ring the notification bell. Illuminati New World Order, commonly known as INWO, is a card game that was released in 1994 by Steve Jackson Games. The game is renowned for its focus on conspiracy theories and global domination, which has fueled numerous conspiracy theories surrounding the game since its inception. The premise of the game involves players taking on the role of various secret societies, competing to dominate the world through any means necessary. Players are expected to engage in activities including political manipulation, media control, and economic destabilization. One of the most compelling aspects of INWO is its seemingly prophetic card imagery. For instance, one card depicts an explosion halfway up a skyscraper, which many believe eerily resembles 9/11. Another card, Pentagon, portrays a scene that looks strikingly similar to the 9/11 attack on the Pentagon. Another card, Charismatic Leader, shows a blonde-haired man addressing an adoring crowd, which some conspiracy theorists link to the rise of Donald Trump. Yet another card, known as the Frog God, depicts a frog idol in ancient Egyptian style. This card has been linked to the quote-unquote meme magic surrounding Pepe the Frog and the Egyptian god Kek. These illustrations, created in the early 1990s, have led many to speculate about the game's foreknowledge of future events. Some speculate that this card game was, in essence, a roadmap for the future. Other conspiracy theorists speculate that the card game did not actually portray future events, but rather that the quote, powers that be, decided to use the card game for these purposes. Skeptics, on the other hand, claim that the depictions are vague and open to interpretation. The game also includes cards featuring other prominent figures and scenarios, such as Hillary Clinton and Al Gore. The game's creator, Steve Jackson, has a noted interest in conspiracy theories, although he maintains that the game was meant to be satirical and entertaining rather than predictive. Interestingly, Jackson's company was raided by the Secret Service in 1990, which further fueled conspiracy theories. Some believe the raid was an attempt to suppress the game's revelations about secret societies. However, the official reason was that it was actually related to a hacking investigation involving one of Jackson's employees. The conspiracy theories surrounding this card game have become reinvigorated following the attempt on Donald Trump's life at a rally on July 13, 2024. One card, named Enough is Enough, pictures a man who some claim looks like Donald Trump, with his mouth open, looking impassioned. The text on the card ominously reads, "At any time, at any place, our snipers can drop you. Have a nice day." The information with respect to the latest development in this card game conspiracy theory was suggested by a Discord community member who prefers to remain anonymous. If you're interested in contributing suggestions to this series, join the Discord community or leave a comment. The Mariana UFO incident occurred on August 15, 1950, in Great Falls, Montana. The event was named after Nick Mariana, the general manager of the Great Falls Electrics, a minor league baseball team who captured the sighting on a 16mm film. At 11:30 a.m., Mariana and his secretary, Virginia Raunig, were inspecting the empty Legion Stadium when they observed two bright silvery objects moving rapidly across the sky. Mariana quickly retrieved his movie camera and filmed the objects for 16 seconds. The footage shows the objects moving at high speed, stopping abruptly, and changing direction, maneuvers that seemed impossible for conventional aircraft of the time. The footage and incident drew significant attention and were investigated by various authorities, including the U.S. Air Force. Initially, the investigation was part of Project Grudge, which aimed to debunk UFO reports. The Air Force concluded that the objects were reflections from two F-94 jet fighters, but this explanation was widely dismissed due to the objects' unusual behavior and appearance. In 1952, the case was re-examined under Project Blue Book, a more extensive Air Force study of UFO phenomena. The Blue Book report suggested that the objects might have been caused by a refraction phenomenon due to temperature inversions. However, this too was criticized for not addressing the abrupt movements captured in the film. Nick Mariana claimed that the initial frames of his film, which allegedly showed the objects as spinning discs, were removed during an analysis by the Air Force. This claim added to the controversy and suspicion surrounding the incident. Over the years, various experts have analyzed the footage. Some have suggested that the objects were high-altitude balloons or experimental aircraft, while others have entertained the possibility of extraterrestrial craft. Some skeptics argue that Mariana might have misinterpreted ordinary objects or even fabricated parts of the story. However, the consistency of the witness accounts and the scrutiny of the film argue against a simple hoax. The original film is preserved in the U.S. National Archives and continues to be a subject of analysis and debate. The Indiana Dunes disappearance. On July 2, 1966, Ann Miller, 21, Patricia Blau, 19, and Renee Bruhl, 19, disappeared in the Indiana Dunes State Park. The three women, all friends from suburban Chicago, drove to the Indiana Dunes State Park that morning. Miller parked her Buick in the lot, and the trio set up about 100 yards from the shoreline. Witnesses recall seeing the women leave their belongings on the beach around noon and enter Lake Michigan together. Subsequently, they were seen boarding a white boat with an unidentified man, described as being in his early 20s, with a tanned complexion and dark, wavy hair. The search for Miller, Blau, and Bruhl began 3 days later, on July 5th, after their families reported them missing. Park rangers found Miller's car with the women's personal items inside. Initial witness accounts, supported by home movie footage, suggested the women boarded a fiberglass trimaran-style boat and later a larger cabin cruiser. The final sighting of the women was reportedly on the beach, where they were seen walking and eating before being approached by another man who led them to the cabin cruiser. Despite extensive searches and investigations, neither the boats nor the men were ever identified. Exploring the women's backgrounds, investigators uncovered several intriguing details. All three were avid horse enthusiasts, and Miller and Blau were linked to men allegedly involved in criminal activities within the horse market. Notably, both these women were also rumored to be pregnant, potentially adding a layer of complexity to their disappearance. Some believe that Miller and Blau might have sought terminations, possibly facilitated by Ralph Largo Jr., who was seen at the park that day. Largo's family was known for providing these, and it's speculated that the women were taken to a boat for such procedures, where something went horribly wrong. Various theories have been proposed over the years, ranging from accidental drowning to voluntary disappearance. However, the idea of voluntary disappearance seems unlikely given the lack of subsequent contact with family and friends. Further, it seems unlikely that all three would choose to disappear without a trace and remain that way. The notion of an accidental drowning is challenged by the fact that both Miller and Blau were strong swimmers, capable of covering long distances. Further complicating the case were unverified sightings of the women and the discovery of debris from an apparent boat wreck near Lake Michigan shortly after their disappearance. Despite these leads, none yielded definitive answers. In the decades since, there have been numerous unconfirmed sightings and speculative connections to other cases, but nothing concrete has emerged to solve the mystery. The Illley Moore UFO Incident. The Illley Moore UFO incident centers on the experience of Philip Spencer, a retired police officer. He reported a close encounter with a UFO and an extraterrestrial being on December 1st, 1987, while walking on Illley Moore in Yorkshire, England. Philip set out early in the morning with his camera, aiming to photograph strange lights reported in the area. As he walked across the moor, he encountered a small, green humanoid creature with large eyes and pointed ears. Acting on impulse, Spencer took a photograph of the being, which then fled. Spencer pursued the creature and witnessed a large domed UFO taking off from the moor and disappearing into the sky. Spencer's photograph of the alleged alien has been the subject of extensive scrutiny. The image, while blurry, showed a figure that did not match any known animal. Initial analysis by wildlife photography experts and further examination at Kodak Laboratories confirmed that the photograph was not tampered with. Spencer's experience did not end with the photograph. He reported feeling disoriented and noted that his compass was pointing south instead of north. Additionally, upon reaching the nearest village, he realized that the town clock indicated an hour had passed, although he felt only a short time had elapsed since his encounter. To retrieve more details about the incident, Spencer underwent hypnosis. During these sessions, he recounted being abducted by the beings he photographed and taken aboard their craft. He described a room filled with bright lights and advanced technology, and how he was examined by the entities. These hypnosis sessions added a layer of complexity to the case, providing a narrative of abduction and interaction with extraterrestrial beings. The public reaction to Spencer's story has been mixed. While some believe his account is genuine, others are skeptical, attributing it to hallucinations or a hoax. Investigators like Peter Howe, who initially thought the case was too good to be true, found Spencer to be credible and not motivated by fame or financial gain. Proponents argue that Spencer's detailed descriptions and the physical evidence of the photograph support a genuine encounter with an alien being. Skeptics suggest that Spencer might have experienced a psychological episode, perhaps triggered by the isolation and eerie atmosphere of the moor. Some believe that the strange lights and the disorientation experienced by Spencer could potentially be explained by natural atmospheric phenomena. However, the photograph remains a focal point of the incident. Despite advanced analysis, including enhancement attempts in the United States, the lack of any evidence suggesting manipulation or fabrication keeps the image at the heart of the mystery. Personally, I'm surprised that this incident hasn't gained more traction, given the very unusual photograph that accompanies this encounter. The Hollandwell Incident. The Hollandwell Incident took place on July 13, 1980, at the Hollandwell Showground near Kirkby in Ashfield, England. The annual event began as a typical Sunday morning with the Forest League of Juvenile Jazz Bands hosting a charity show. Around 500 children from 11 marching bands were present, many having traveled long distances to participate. The show started at 9 a.m., but by 10:30 a.m., hundreds of people, including children and adults, suddenly experienced mysterious symptoms and began collapsing inexplicably. Witnesses described them, quote, falling down like ninepins, with symptoms including dizziness, sore eyes and throats, vomiting, and a feeling of limb weakness. Approximately 300 people were affected, and 259 were taken to nearby hospitals, though only 9 children stayed overnight. Initial investigations by Ashfield District Council explored various potential causes. One leading theory suggested pesticide poisoning, specifically tridmorph, used in nearby fields. This substance, present in the pesticide calyxin, was considered hazardous. However, the wind direction on that day made it unlikely for the pesticide to reach the showground. Later investigations revealed no substantial evidence supporting this theory. Mass hysteria emerged as the official explanation. Experts suggested that the stress of performing and waiting in hot weather could have triggered a collective psychological response. Despite this explanation, many people involved in the incident were dissatisfied, feeling their real symptoms were being dismissed. Alternative theories included exposure to high-frequency radio waves. A transmitter at a nearby gas depot was suspected, but no concrete link was established. Another idea involved a mystery bug, possibly the Coxsackie virus. However, this theory failed to explain the immediate onset of symptoms during the event. There were also more speculative suggestions, including UFOs and demonic influences. These theories gained little traction and were largely dismissed by investigators and the public. The aluminum wedge of Aiud, discovered in 1974 near Aiud, Romania, has stirred considerable intrigue due to its unusual characteristics and the circumstances of its discovery. Found 35 feet underground alongside two mastodon bones by workers digging along the Muirs River, the wedge's presence in such an ancient context raises significant questions. Aluminum was not discovered until 1808, and not produced in significant quantities until the late 19th century. The wedge itself is primarily made of aluminum, composing 89% of its material, alongside small amounts of copper, silicon, zinc, lead, and other elements. This composition is peculiar, given the context of its discovery. If it truly were as old as the mastodon bones, it would date back at least 11,000 years. This is a period long before human capability to process any metal whatsoever. Various theories have been proposed regarding the origin and purpose of the wedge. Some suggest it might be a part of an ancient, yet advanced civilization's technology, or even extraterrestrial equipment. However, these ideas often veer into the realm of pseudo-archaeology and are not widely accepted within the mainstream scientific community. More conservative hypotheses consider it a more recent artifact, possibly part of some 20th century machinery that somehow ended up buried alongside much older items. The wedge has been extensively tested in laboratories in Europe, where the aluminum nature of the wedge was confirmed. The aluminum wedge is not on public display and was last known to be stored in a museum in 1995, after which it has been kept in an undisclosed location. Notably, this is an example of an out-of-place artifact, not unlike the Iron Pillar of Delhi or the Piri Reis map. The Slaying of Sarah Ware. On September 17, 1898, in Bucksport, Maine, Sarah Ware, a 52-year-old woman, disappeared while walking home from a friend's house. Her body was discovered 2 weeks later in a field, significantly decomposed. A raincoat was found beneath her head, possibly indicating an attempt to conceal her remains. The investigation began with local authorities, but it quickly became apparent they needed outside help. Detectives from nearby cities were brought in, funded by a community-raised $500 after initial funds for the investigation mysteriously dried up. The investigation led to William Trewargy, who was suspected of owing Sarah Ware money. The case became complicated when Joe Fogg Jr. claimed he was paid by Trewargy to dispose of Ware's body. However, he later recanted his statement, alleging he was coerced. The evidence, including a tarp and a hammer, went missing, and many key individuals involved in the investigation passed away under questionable circumstances. Despite these challenges, Trewargy was eventually brought to trial. The local court struggled with the case, citing community ties that made an impartial trial difficult. It ultimately reached the Hancock County Supreme Court, but with witnesses dead or recanting and evidence lost, Trewargy was acquitted. Sarah Ware's remains were treated with unusual carelessness. Her body was buried in a pauper's grave, where an artificial lake was subsequently created. It is uncertain if her body was moved or if it lies beneath the lake's waters. A marker in Oak Hill Cemetery in Bucksport commemorates her, but only her head rests there, near her former husband's family plot. Numerous theories and ghost stories surround Sarah Ware's demise. Some suggest she haunts the shores of Silver Lake, seeking justice. The lack of concrete evidence and the mystery of her final resting place add to the lore. The case remains officially unsolved, with Treeworgy often speculated to have escaped justice. The Guinness Family Curse. The Guinness family, synonymous with the famous Irish stout, is often said to be plagued by a series of unfortunate events, collectively referred to as the Guinness family curse. The Guinness family's rise to prominence began with Arthur Guinness, who founded the Guinness Brewery in 1759 in Dublin. Over the centuries, the family not only expanded their brewing empire, but also became significant figures in banking, politics, and social circles in both Ireland and Britain. Despite their wealth and influence, the family has endured numerous tragedies that have led many to speculate about a curse. One of the earliest tragedies linked to the Guinness family curse involves Arthur Guinness himself, who fathered 21 children, but only 10 survived to adulthood. The pattern of early and tragic losses continued through subsequent generations. In 1944, Lord Moyne, born Walter Edward Guinness, a prominent family member, was assassinated in Cairo by extremists. This event is often considered a pivotal point in the family's series of misfortunes. In the 1960s, Tara Brown, a young and charismatic Guinness heir, was a prominent figure in London's swinging social scene. His life was cut short in a car accident in 1966, an event that inspired the Beatles' song, "A Day in the Life." Also, I know I'm going to get comments for this if I don't address it here. Tara Brown was indeed a man, not a woman. I didn't misspeak. This high-profile tragedy kept the alleged curse in the public eye. Lady Henrietta Guinness, another descendant, struggled with depression and ultimately ended herself by jumping off the Ponte delle Torri in Italy in 1978. The same year, the family suffered more losses with Major Dennis Guinness and the young Peter Guinness, both under tragic circumstances. The 1980s and 1990s continued the trend of misfortune. Olivia Channon, a Guinness family member, died from a drug overdose in 1986. The early 2000s saw Robert Hesketh, married to a Guinness descendant, pass away under similar circumstances. Some suggest that the immense wealth and pressure of maintaining the family legacy contribute to a high-stress environment, leading to mental health issues and substance abuse. Others speculate that the family is simply unlucky, or that these tragedies are coincidental but exacerbated by their high-profile status. There is also gossip of a supernatural curse, possibly linked to the family's deep involvement in various ventures and conflicts over centuries. However, such theories remain speculative and lack concrete evidence. My theory on the Guinness curse is fairly simple. First, it is readily apparent that this is an extremely large extended family, and as such, there are numerous members for things to go wrong in relation to. Second, all of these numerous members had little concerns about money and significant idle time. Third, as an elite and well-connected family, they are substantially more likely to produce an individual who will be targeted for certain types of violence, such as an assassination. Putting these factors together, it becomes readily apparent why the Guinness family may exhibit a higher mortality rate than your average family. This was a suggestion by Discord community member, patron, and frequent topic suggester, Monoxide Wendigo. The Chimera is one of the most recognizable and perhaps disturbing creatures from Greek mythology. It's a hybrid monster described as a fire-breathing entity with the body and head of a lion, a goat's head protruding from its back, and a serpent for a tail. Its origins are traced back to the works of Homer and Hesiod, who provide vivid descriptions of its terrifying appearance and abilities. However, it's strongly speculated that the creature was well known amongst the Hellenic peoples prior to this. The Chimera is said to be the offspring of Typhon and Echidna, making it a sibling to other infamous monsters like Cerberus and the Hydra. According to myth, it resided in the region of Lycia in Asia Minor, terrorizing the area until it was confronted by the hero Bellerophon. The most famous story involving the Chimera is its encounter with Bellerophon. The hero, who was riding the winged horse Pegasus, was sent by King Iobates of Lycia to defeat the Chimera as part of a series of seemingly impossible tasks. Bellerophon managed to slay the monster by using a spear tipped with lead, which melted in the Chimera's fiery breath and suffocated it. In Greek culture, the Chimera often symbolized chaos and the dangers of unchecked power. Its depiction in art varied, with some showing it without a mane or with goat legs in addition to its other hybrid features. Greek pottery and mosaics frequently depicted the Chimera, often alongside Bellerophon. Similar hybrid creatures appear in various other mythologies around the world. For instance, the Japanese Nue and the Chinese Pixiu share similarities with the Chimera, blending features from multiple animals into one fearsome entity. These parallels highlight a universal fascination with hybrid creatures across cultures. Additionally, the term chimera has been adopted in scientific contexts to describe organisms with mixed genetic material from different species. Notably, one thing I find particularly interesting about the Chimera and similar creatures is how the Chimera went from a legitimately believed encryptid to a purely mythological creature. Ghouls. The concept of the ghoul originates from pre-Islamic Arabian folklore, where they were depicted as malevolent spirits or monstrous beings inhabiting desolate places such as graveyards. The Arabic term ghoul is derived from gala, meaning to seize, reflecting their predatory nature. These early ghouls were believed to have shape-shifting abilities, often appearing as beautiful women to lure unsuspecting travelers to their doom. Islamic texts and scholars also reference ghouls, although their existence is debated. In some hadiths, ghouls are mentioned as real entities, while other sources dismiss them as mere folklore and pre-Islamic superstition. The sources that do treat them as real often portray ghouls as a type of jinn, or genie, able to change shape and deceive travelers. The ghoul concept entered European consciousness through the translation of The 1001 Nights by Antoine Galland in the 18th century. Galland's translation introduced the ghoul as a grave-robbing creature, a notion not as prevalent in earlier Arabic folklore. This transformation significantly influenced Western perceptions, embedding the ghoul in European horror tradition. In ancient Arabian lore, ghouls were often described as hairy, canine-featured creatures with hoof-like feet. These characteristics allowed them to blend into their harsh desert environments. They were also known to cause disease, reflecting their association with death and decay. Over time, as the story spread and evolved, European portrayals of ghouls shifted to pale, rubbery-skinned beings sensitive to light. Further additions suggested they were capable of assuming the forms of their victims to infiltrate human society. Ghouls have continued to find a significant place in modern horror fiction and media. Quick aside, but the word ghoul appears to have an inherently creepy element to it. For instance, it just isn't a word that could be ascribed to a creature like, let's say a kitten. If anyone could explain what this phenomenon is, please let me know. Permafrost and ancient viruses. Permafrost, a layer of soil that remains frozen year-round for at least 2 consecutive years, acts as a time capsule, preserving ancient organisms and viruses for millennia. As climate change accelerates the melting of permafrost, scientists are discovering and reviving ancient viruses, leading to concerning findings about these zombie viruses. In 2014, researchers revived Pithovirus sibericum, a 30,000-year-old virus found in Siberian permafrost. This virus, much larger than typical viruses, infects amoebas, but poses no threat to humans. In subsequent years, scientists discovered even older viruses. These discoveries underscore the potential for ancient pathogens to resurface as the Arctic continues to warm. At present, the revived viruses studied so far only infect amoebas. However, the existence of such ancient and viable pathogens suggests that viruses capable of infecting humans could also be preserved in permafrost. The 2016 anthrax outbreak in Siberia provided a stark example of how melting permafrost can release ancient pathogens. A heat wave thawed the 75-year-old corpse of a reindeer infected with anthrax, leading to a human outbreak. This incident highlighted the real-world implications of climate change and melting permafrost, suggesting that other dormant diseases could potentially resurface. Despite the sensational nature of zombie viruses, the likelihood of ancient human pathogens re-emerging and causing widespread outbreaks is currently considered low. Like, subscribe, join the Patreon or YouTube membership, join the Discord, and also check out my Spotify page for lo-fi beats. Shout out to my patrons Noah Schubert, Iced Mocha, Kurt the Squirt, Monoxide Wendigo, Jeffer Metcalf, Z-Volts, Jordan All, Franz Tech, Unknown Delusions, Faye, Jack Russell, Boomslang, Spookiest Becky, Vespertine, Metanova, Will Roan, Crab Nebula, and Blasphemoose.